contact with entities that they don't quite understand, and that she has been a willing or unwilling participant in Close Encounters of the Seventh Kind, an alien breeding program.
Oh, wow. Now, Victoria, how old were you when it first started?
My earliest memories, and these memories are as vivid today as they were back when I was a little girl, like, I don't know, somewhere between 3 and 5 probably, is when I first remember these, I called them the ant people, and they were in my room all the time at nighttime, but they were little, I mean, I was a little kid, but I mean, I remember them so vividly because they were there what seems to have been for years and years, and they were very oddly, they were little, and they were up like around my ceiling. I had, I think, probably almost perfectly square room, and they were kind of up around my ceiling, and they were winding thread around my room. And I mean, I know it sounds ridiculous, but that's what they were doing. That's what my memory was. But I have specific memories of, I always, whenever I would tell someone about those memories, I would always do this hand motion where, you know how if you're threading a rope, like from right to left, and your hands are kind of, your right hand comes together with your left, and then the left separates, you know what I'm talking about?
Yes, uh-huh.
That's what those ants were doing with this thread around my room. So that memory is coupled with a secondary memory that's also very vivid, that I kind of bulk those together at that same time frame of really early memories. And that is of seeing outside my window, going down my street from right to left, was a giant, I called him Michelin Tire Man. And later on, years later, when I saw the Ghostbusters movie and I saw that big marshmallow man, I was like, that's like what I saw, the Michelin Tire Man going down my street, this big, giant Michelin Tire Man. And behind that was a kind of the quintessential silver disc UFO, but it had rainbow lights around it. And I always remember rainbow lights. And then, bringing up the rear was the robot from Lost in Space. And so my guess is that, maybe the robot was some kind of a screen memory. I don't know. But those two memories are very vivid. And the ant people were in my room over and over and over and over and over and over at nighttime. But that scene of the Michelin Tire Man and the UFO and the robot that was just kind of a one-time thing I remember. But then you fast forward, so that was like maybe 1966, maybe 65, 6, something like that. But you fast forward to like 2015, I was at a UFO conference, and I was listening to Daryl Sims speak, and I had never heard Daryl speak before, and he actually had a screen, he had a slide that had the Michelin Tire Man on it. And people, and so I literally ran to his table afterwards to ask him about it, because I'd never seen that before. I'd never heard anyone say they saw the Michelin Tire Man. But there were about a dozen documented sightings between, the mid-'60s to, I think, the 80s, maybe. But I had never heard anybody say that, and I had asked Daryl. And so it's interesting that all those decades later, I kind of got validation that somebody else saw the Michelin Tire Man.
Interesting. Now, I'm wondering if you actually saw something, or they kind of made you see something, how can I say it? I know that... screen memories. Yeah, okay. Because the reason why I say this, I had a game warden that worked for for the wildlife department, fish for the U.S. government. And, he wrote a book about owls, and he had an encounter. He was in his bedroom one time. He kind of lived in the area, so he didn't have to close the curtains. And he saw these grays walking towards his window and then walking into his bedroom. And, and then all of a sudden after, we were interviewing him, it kind of like sunk in. After that, he started seeing owls. So he would go out, doing his job. It'd be owls everywhere. And that went on for a while, and that's why he wrote the book on it. And I asked him, I said, do you think when you saw those grays or whatever they were that came into your room and all of a sudden you have a loss of memory, what happened? Maybe every time you see a gray or an alien, that you're not really seeing the alien, you're seeing an owl, something they imprinted into your brain.
Mm-hmm. Sure, it certainly could have been a screen memory, and I certainly know about owls being screen memories. And in my grandson's case, because, he started having experiences when he was about 3.5 was the first time he came to me with that. And he described them as mice people. And, his first... so he was born in 2009, so it was maybe 13. He was born the summer of 2009, 10, 11, 12. It would have been like the fall of 13, so he was like 3.5. 3.5. And my friend from my boyfriend at the time, the one who Ray met, we were together, and Bobby in the back seat, blurts out about an experience that he had, and he called them mice people, and he was 3.5. And, Ray, there's actually a story that builds up to that, but Ray actually interviewed my grandson as well, and I think maybe he was like 7 at the time that Ray interviewed him, 7 or 8. And, his memory was pretty darn vivid from those nights, too, but I even recorded him at 3.5 telling the story. So his screen memory was mice people.
Now, hey, Ray, do you remember the interview with her grandson?
Yeah, I actually had a chance to interview him twice.
So can you describe how big these, mice people were and what they actually looked like and all that?
Well, he actually did a drawing of them, and it's included in Victoria's Secret Truth. The one is really funny because it looks very benevolent. He put a big smile on it, so that was kind of interesting. But what we did is went into his bedroom, and, I said, Bobby, why don't you take me through this? And so he points to where they came in. He claims they came in through the window, and he tells me all about the discussion, and I don't know if it was a verbal discussion or maybe it was telepathic. And then he says, well, they tell me they're going to take me downstairs. And then the very strange thing is he tells me that he was floated out of his bedroom, down the hallway, down a staircase, which is there's stairs, about 8 stairs, then a landing, then another 8 stairs, and then through this hallway down to the left and into a room called the choo-choo room, which is where his toy trains were at the time, and that they laid him on this coffee table. So, again, I have a photograph in the book of Bobby. He's now years older, and his feet it's kind of comical because at the time when it happened to him, he would have been able to lay very comfortably on that coffee table. But on the day that I was there, it's now years later, his feet are hanging out over the coffee table. But he actually, when he was walking from his room down the first hallway and then down those stairwells, he stiffened his arms up in order to emulate the look that he was being floated down through there. So that was his memory, that he was being floated, and they laid him on this coffee table, and then he said they stuck a booger up my nose, which because of his bloody nose, we interpret as a perhaps an implant.
Yeah, or something. That's what it sounds like.
Well, because that story, Gary, stemmed from him waking up one morning just in a pool of blood on the bed, and, that's all documented as well. I can't remember if those pictures were in the book, but then, he tells me this story at 3.5, and I didn't really press him on it because I didn't even think about it. I just thought, oh my God, you had a terrible bloody nose. And it was just a couple days later, out of the blue, in the backseat of the car, he says, "Hey, Grandma, can I tell you something?" Of course. So, that bloody nose I had. So the mice people came in my room, and they took me to the teacher room and laid me on the table, and they stuck a booger in my nose, and that's how I got a bloody nose. And then he drops the bomb. Ray, you want to deliver this one?
No, it's all you.
No.
Okay. So then he drops this bomb, and he says, "Oh, and Grandma," and I'm like, "Yeah," and he goes, "Then they touched my eye with a stick and made me go to sleep." He's 3.5 years old telling me this.
I find that very hard for a 3-year-old. You have imagination like that. It tells me something happened. Something happened to him.
Well, he's a unique child, to say the least. He's very, very mature soul for his age, very compassionate. I mean, the kid's never been bratty, but he told me it was probably before this event it was around that same time, 3 to 3.5 to a little older maybe, out of the back seat. "Hey, Grandma." "Yeah, can I tell you something?" "Sure." "So I picked you." I said, "You picked me? Oh, I'm so glad you picked me." And he goes, "Yeah, I picked you because you're supposed to teach me things, because I came to the earth to teach the humans about love."
Interesting. Now, I got to ask you a question.
That's what he said.
Yeah, I got to ask you another question. Has anybody taken him and had x-rays done of his head for checking for implant or anything?
But Roger Lear, Dr. Lear wanted me to do that. And I was like, I'm not going to take this little boy for a head x-ray. Because if they found something and took it out, and the ETs wanted it in there, they're just going to do it again.
Oh, yeah, I believe that.
No.
Yeah, because I had Timothy Cullen on a couple of times. I think he was number 12 or 13 implant removal from Dr. Roger Lear. And, after he had his implant, a while after, him and his wife, they saw another UFO. And I said, "Did you ever go back and check to see if you had another implant put in?" And he said, "No." Because I think most people, they don't want to know. Once it's over with, they want it over with. But I always have a gut feeling that Timothy, when he saw that second UFO, maybe got abducted again and had another implant. Because So I can see the point of having it, if you have it removed, then you have to go maybe through it again, and maybe it won't be as nice of an implant as the first time, if you know what I'm getting at.
Right, or nice, as an experience.
That's what I was saying.
But then you fast forward to, I don't know, what year was that other blood situation, Ray, with his nose, the last one? It was like maybe, it would have been maybe 14, 15, something like that. And we're just sitting around, and I have, like around that time frame. Yeah, so Bobby would have been 6.5 or something like that, and maybe 7.5. And we're just sitting around one evening, and I have, a lot of responsibility with my grandson, and I, for many years I had him 5 days a week during his formative years, from like 1.5 until almost 6, and I still have him every weekend. So we're very close, but so he was with me a lot. So anyway, we're just kind of hanging out one Saturday evening, and all of a sudden his nose starts bleeding. And, he's like, "Oh, my nose is bleeding." And, here in Colorado, you get nosebleeds, because it's dry here. And so anyway, at first I didn't think anything of it, but within a few seconds, it started turning into this gushing nosebleed. And, it's so much so that I'm like, I don't even know what to do. So I was like looking on the internet. What do? Okay, you tip your head back a little bit and you spit the blood out your mouth. And so we were doing that, and you're supposed to kind of pinch the top of your nose. I mean, I was really worried because it was profusely bleeding. I've got a trash can and a box of tissues just collecting all this blood. And then all of a sudden, I mean, and I can